I have an amazing woman here to share her story. And when I heard Andrea's story, this is Andrea Taylor. When I heard her story and her bio, I knew I had to have her on my show to share with you. So without further ado, Andrea, would you mind sharing a brief bio and how that kind of leads into this amazing story that we want to share today?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Love it.
I'm Andrea Taylor. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I am a stroke survivor. I am a Kundalini yoga teacher, and I host and facilitate events, workshops, retreats, all things wellness for women. And when I look back at the course of my adult life, I have been helping women all along the way. So it started out in college. I would teach fitness classes and hundreds of women would come to my classes, and I built such amazing connections and relationships with them. And then it transitioned into doing personal training and teaching at a corporate level, and simultaneously leading a multi-million-dollar program for a multi-billion-dollar company with thousands and thousands of women across the US, Canada, Puerto Rico. And I was able to host events and do really fun, cool, interactive experiences, both virtual and in person. And that lasted 7 years. And it was an amazing part of my career. And right at the end of that is kind of where my life shifted and changed forever. And my strokes happened.
Yeah. So tell us more about that. Tell me more about that.
Okay. So I've been thinking about it, since you asked me to do this interview, and I really want to share about 2 gifts that my strokes gave me. So this is really inspired. The concept of what I want to share came to me all at once when I was in this magical place between wake and sleep. My consciousness is open and my cognitive mind is present. So my thoughts this morning were on experiencing absence, enduring lack. And it was just temporary, but it was like a basic God-given gift of our physical experience and how it allowed me to appreciate and build an awareness when I did experience that absence and that lack. So there's a lot of gifts that came with my strokes, but these 2 strong examples I want to share are relatable enough. And I believe anybody can empathize and therefore take away a personal relevance, making it applicable for their own lives. So
I love it. Awesome.
This first gift that my stroke gave me was a quiet mind. And for the first time in my life, my mind was silent. Not a thought passed through, not a question, not an observation, no internal dialogue or that incessant chatter. For a month straight, following my strokes, my mind was silent. And this was interesting because during the 4th and final stroke, the blood clot moved through my brain center that processed my ability to speak. And I lost that ability to talk, and my mind and body connection was severed in that moment. And it was temporary, but during that moment, I was literally trapped inside my mind. So I was cognitively aware of this disconnect, and I was screaming internally, "Can you understand me?" My husband was right next to me, and I'm screaming at him, "Can you understand me?" But the only thing that my husband and I heard were these garbled sounds.
How terrifying.
I know, incoherent. And that's the last memory that I have of my thoughts, was my awareness that I was trapped inside of my mind. And it was terrifying.
I cannot even imagine that.
Yeah. So an hour later, I'm in the ER. I'm laying in an MRI tube. Sounds are loudly ticking all around me, and I laid still. Tears are streaming down my face, and headphones cover my ears, and I'm listening to what you would hear at a day spa.
Not very relaxing.
And no, they had asked me, "What do you want to listen to in here?" And immediately my answer was yoga music. Something in me knew intuitively that sound would be part of my brain healing. So imaging confirmed my diagnosis. I had had 4 strokes, and I was told that an ambulance would be taking me from my local hospital to a better equipped trauma center that had neurologists on staff. And I will never forget the look on my husband's face. They said, "We will see you at the other hospital in 30 minutes. And they closed the ambulance doors between the 2 of us.
Oh my gosh.
And he and I did not know if I would make it there alive.
Mm.
So my recovery was long,
Right.
years long, but it was such a gift. And my mind was blank. It was a blank slate for more than a month. Of course, I didn't know that I wasn't having any thoughts until they came back.
Right.
And my world was silent. And in the silence, I healed. In the silence, I experienced with my other senses. And my inner vision was really strong. I witnessed beautiful healing. Miracles were taking place in and all around me. And these visions gave me glimpses of hope. So during this time of deep despair, they gave me that hope. They kept me going, and it allowed me to know that I am not alone in this, when in reality, I felt very alone. And physically, I had to be very alone. So I had a chronic, severe migraine that never stopped for more than 6 months. My senses were so overstimulated that I couldn't leave my dark bedroom without this intense pain from bright natural light that would come through my living room windows. My ears couldn't tolerate the symphony of sounds that would come from clanking forks on plates during meal times. So I couldn't eat with my family. I ate alone. I sat in my room alone. Being in public was so loud, so bright, so overstimulating. I had to wear sunglasses and earplugs, but mostly I didn't go out.
Did the doctors give you any indication that this was temporary, or did they think that this might be a permanent side effect?
You know, they weren't very helpful, and that was so frustrating. To even see a neurologist, it was a 3-month wait. So they dismissed me from the hospital. They said, congratulations, you can walk, you can talk, you're fine. We'll see you in 3 months. That's the soonest we can get you in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So again, another reason why I felt so alone. I had no expert to guide me, give me any insider information. So I was in my room, I was alone a lot, and I was sleeping up to 20 hours a day for that
You're
first month.
like a newborn baby, really.
Yeah, truly. So you can see how lonely I was, and I didn't even have my own thoughts to sit with me. But it was a gift because I didn't have to think. I didn't need to think. I just experienced. I healed. And for once, I enjoyed the contrast of true inner peace. So that duality is interesting, right? While being so alone, I felt so much peace. And then during the 4 days of having my strokes, I experienced the most excruciating pain of my life. These 4 pea-sized clots squeezed their way through the veins of my body and brain, and eventually cut off the oxygen supply. And I felt the pain of brain tissue dying.
Oh gosh.
Yet I was in bliss. I felt more happiness and more joy in that deep pain than I had ever known.
Wow. I didn't know that was possible.
I know, me neither. And when I think back about it, I'm like, how was that? Why was that?
Yeah.
I'm still digesting years later. I don't know how
I
you
know that.
hold both at once.
I think that's the paradox of life itself, is that excruciating pain, I think, deepens us enough to experience deep joy and pleasure. And, I think that's why chasing numbness is so dangerous. And I think what you experienced showed you intimately how to avoid that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard it described that way, but I think that's beautiful. It's amazing.
Yeah. So my first thought comes back after this month-long sabbatical in silence. It was shattered. And I was like, was that a thought? Immediately observing the thought. And then I think, I'm talking in my mind. I'm like stunned. Wow. And I said, was I not talking before now? And I gasped and I sat, and for minutes I'm processing, like, what? I'm thinking, but I wasn't thinking. And now I am thinking. It's been quiet. It's been silent in here. I haven't had a single thought, and now I am. So I sat with that for hours, processed. I thought, I observed, and then I processed again.
That's fascinating.
Wow.
I cannot even imagine not being able to observe our thoughts, like we don't understand that there's there's like a committee in our mind, and you have like the mean girl, or at least I do, the judging, the voice of judgment, and you have your voice of wisdom, and they fight with each other. And then you have your passive and your aggressive, and you have all of these things. And for all of those, for the committee to just exit is a fascinating thought. People chase that. People go into monk, up in the mountains with the monks to try to acquire that. And it was forced on you. And like you said, I think it's incredibly graceful of you to perceive this as a gift, because I don't know that I have that level of grace to be able to think what a gift that is. I would have probably have been very angry if I'm being completely transparent.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to talk to you, because if I like everything I do with my business and with this channel is to add value and to give a gift. And when I hear your story and I see the way that you received it, I think there are so many women and people out there who are going through difficult struggles and going through things that, while it might not be a physical struggle, but an emotional struggle or a relational struggle, they can hear what you experienced and they can think, what if this is a gift?
Yeah.
What if this is a gift? What a beautiful position to take. I think that is so impactful.
Thank you. It wasn't always that way. I mean, I can relate to how you would be angry. I felt so betrayed by my body for a long time. I felt so much despair. And like I said, those visions, those glimpses gave me hope and courage to keep going, because I had seen the outcome. I had seen myself healed. I knew I'd be okay, even though I was not okay. So I could move through anger and grief relatively quickly and into a place of grace and just receive whatever the lesson was. And I'm grateful.
Yes.
But I definitely experienced the whole spectrum of emotions too.
Okay.
I also remember the first time I sang after not singing. Like I started crying and I thought, we sing not well, but we sing songs in our minds. Like we get songs stuck in our head. I forgot that was a thing. My brain didn't remember that you can get something stuck in your head. So I was crying, sobbing. And I'm like, we sing in our minds. We sing in the shower. We sing to our babies. We sing. So,
oh my gosh, what a beautiful gift.
Yeah. These little bits and pieces would just come back, and they were gifts every single time.
It's very childlike, the way you're describing it. It sounds like a returning to wonder, really, because we lose that as adults. Like we're so skeptical, and part of my work is doing thought work with people and getting back to as humans, we're meaning makers. We want to make meaning of everything, and it's really what sets us apart from other animals and mammals is that we can make meaning. We can have thoughts about our thoughts, and other species don't do that. And what you're describing is really like you were able to remember that is in itself a gift, that observing, and the thoughts that we have about things becomes the reality that we experience. So you were able to essentially just experience the here and now, and just moment by moment, without thoughts, making meaning of everything that happens or what people say, or I mean, while I'm sure it was excruciatingly painful, I imagine that you didn't have a ton of resentments towards people, because it was just, everything just was what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a gift I try to give my clients. I mean, I have to coach people to get to that place because we make so many meanings of a look, somebody, an absence of some kind, and we make a meaning of it. And then a resentment builds and builds and builds, and it's really for nothing.
Yes. Yeah. The tailspin.
So let me ask you this. Have you been able to carry that feeling with you most of the time, or do you just have to go back and remember it? Or is that wonder still with you?
I think it's changed me for sure. You can't go through something like this and not be a new person, new version of yourself.
Sure.
But at the same time, you get bogged down by life and to-do lists and daily tasks, and our minds are still doing their meaning-making job. And so I find myself, going between the two. Sometimes I'm in wonder and like, wow, this is where I'm at. And then other times I'm like, how are you so forgetful of the miracles?
Yeah.
So I bounce between the two, but my strokes definitely gifted me that contrast. So from chatter to silence, and like this enduring silence was a gift and a place to rest and to heal. But then the second part of the gift, like you were saying, was this awareness and this observation piece. So we hear all the time, like, you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, I lived that notion long enough that I feel its truth in my bones. Like, I am not my thoughts.
Oh, you just gave me the chills all over my body, from my scalp to my toes.
I love it. Yeah. Realizing this gift that curiously and attentively and intentionally observing my thoughts, releasing them, learning from them, all while knowing I am not them. That's the gift.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some ways that myself and people listening to this can return to that wonder? I know that you have had a journey to hold on to that. And I know that there are ways, modalities, and things that we could do. So what can you leave, our listeners with, the things that they could do to have that gift?
Okay, so this is really interesting because where I experienced the most damage in my brain was my emotional processing. So with that came a heightened sensitivity and overwhelm. So I experienced more anxiety than I ever have post-stroke, and I experience more overwhelm. And then I'm acutely aware of how anxious and overwhelmed I feel. And it's so frustrating, like,
yeah.
Incredibly frustrating. So I am grateful for these tools and resources that I've found since going through the strokes, that I can just come back to being present. And I think that's like the best, most simple, but also the most frustrating answer, where people are like, what? But even this morning, I'm having a conversation with my daughter. I'm like, what is real? This moment right now is all there is. You get so depressed about what's already passed. You get so anxious about what isn't here yet. And the truth is, we only have this 1 minute right now. We are having this conversation, and any viewers are having this one moment listening to my voice right now. That's it. That's all that is real. So if we can find ourselves observing the thought, observing the feeling, not shaming or gaslighting ourselves for having the thoughts and feelings, but just being curious and intentional, like, okay, I'm experiencing something. I'm curious about that. Why do I experience that? And then come back immediately to what is real. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. That is real.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I wanted to share one other gift because this one was really powerful for me, and it kind of ties everything back to love. So the second gift of many that my strokes gave to me, this sounds like the 12 Days of Christmas song.
Hey, if there's 10 more, I'm here for it. I love it.
Gift, the second gift I want to share was the gift of love. And it's death and then choosing it again. So it was like systems had crashed in the computer of my brain, and without any warning or assistance, they would reboot. Like a piece of the puzzle would suddenly be back in full all at once, and I could see more of the picture of who I am and what I am. And so I got to watch this process. Before, the instant change, and then awestruck after. So this one night I was laying in bed next to BJ, my husband, and my love for him came back.
Did you know you had lost it?
No, I didn't know that my awareness of my love for him was gone until it came back. So tears welled up in my eyes, and I looked over at him with this new awareness of how much he meant to me, how happy my heart is that he is mine and I am his. And I burst into this sobbing puddle in his arms. And I suddenly knew, like, I am in love with this man. I have loved him since I was 17 years old. For nearly 2 decades of my life at that point, I was gifted the ability to remember that love in an instant after unknowingly forgetting. Yeah. And I didn't know the fullness of that love without the contrast of oblivion and ambivalence toward the love. So it wasn't like moments earlier I didn't love him. It was just that moments before my brain had forgotten what our love was. And then when it came back, my heart could have burst.
Oh, wow. Now that is so relatable because I talk to people nearly every single day who live in oblivion that you described, and they didn't suffer a stroke. They have just had life handed to them in sucker punches most of the time. And, I talked to somebody yesterday and she described to me what you just described, except for that she was acutely aware of the loss of love. And, to these women and men too, if they're watching, I would say, like, if you put in the work, like you put in work, you worked hard. And I know how you did that. And you are an amazing example of not giving up. And I think it would be difficult to, whether you are acutely aware or not, to lose that feeling, and just know that on the other side is bliss. There is ecstasy, and I'm not talking in a sexual way. It is pure to feel that amount of love for somebody after the loss of it. It's exquisite. It's exquisite. And every relationship goes through those ebbs and flows, and some are more extreme than others. Esther Perel, who's a relationship psychologist, she says, in your lifetime, you will have 4 great loves. And if you're lucky, it will be with the same person.
Oh.
I know. And I think about that all the time because my husband, most people in my community know who my husband is. He is a powerhouse. He's amazing. I know how lucky and blessed, and I'm amazed that I get to be in this relationship. And we've been through our ebbs and flows. I've had moments of numbness and confusion and that wonder and that exquisite feeling of remembering love again. I've experienced too. That's why I'm getting emotional, because yours is so palpable. It's so like you said, the paradox, this duality, it's so significant. And I think that I just want to learn everything I can from you. So thank you so much for sharing your story and being so vulnerable. And I learned so much today, and I hope that people listening did. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
No, I'm really grateful for the chance to just share. Like you had asked me, to share what I'm an expert in. And the only thing I'm really an expert in is my personal human experience.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to be me. And that's all I really know, just how to live my life.
Right.
So it's a damn good one. And I'm so blessed. And I'm really grateful. I love to share bits of my heart through sharing my story. So I am so grateful for you letting me do just that today.
Well, thank you for your willingness to share. And I really hope that your story penetrates the hearts of those who are listening. And there's going to be many, many more interviews to come. And I will absolutely have you back, because your experiences are deep and rich. And while you are this incredibly insightful and spiritual person, you have this funny and effervescent, wacky side that I think the next time you come, maybe we can experience more of that side as well. You are a joy and a light. Thank you so much for being here today, Andrea. If people want to find you or want to have more of that, both of that, the duality that you offer,
Thanks so much.
where can they find you?
Instagram's a good place for that. My handle is One Creative Life, spelled out ONE, One Creative Life. And I offer classes live in person. I do lots of workshops in Utah. I do retreats both in Utah and internationally. So if anyone wants to join me for any of the things I offer, I love to just share light and uplift and educate and connect.
Yeah, I've been to one of your retreats and it was the beginning of my journey. Truly, I'm a changed person. So thank you. And I will link your handle in the description and where so people can find you. And thank you again for sharing today, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Okay.